Good morning, everyone. While people are settling in, I'm going to do something new this week. My son is training his new dog with hand signals and no voice commands. So I'm going to try that on you. Are you ready? Okay. We'll see how well you do. I'll hear about it during the meeting if you didn't observe my prompt. I'm Sharon Nelson Arnsource, the president of HASP, and I want to welcome all of you here today. Special welcome to our guests and new members, but I also want to say a shout out to those that are joining us by live stream. We're happy to have all of us here today. And welcome to HASP 2023. Can you believe it? I remember when we were in the last century, and I think maybe some of you do too. At the end of the week last week, we received what we've long been anticipating, our new course catalogs. I had a great time this weekend looking through it, putting my stars. Tom puts his plus, and tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. will be our opportunity to go online and to actually register for our courses. So please, if you've not gone through the catalog yet, take time to really select those that look interesting to you. Use your curiosity to explore some of those courses in those areas you may not know much about, but get a little taste of something new. The catalog came with clear directions, but tomorrow morning each member will receive an email with a direct link to the registration page. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible, and we encourage you to write down what you signed up for and the modality that you decided to choose so that you show up at the right time, to the right course, and in the right way. We'll try to support you in this, but some of us are a little bit more forgetful than we were earlier on, and I'm speaking to myself about that. Don't you wonder how the curriculum committee and its four subcommittees continue term after term to bring us a wide variety of high-quality courses? It's really amazing. And I want to thank all of those that put in hours and hours of hard work to find presenters, to teach classes, to be coordinators, to work on the subcommittees, and the staff that supports all of that work. So I think at the beginning of this term, I think they deserve a big round of applause. Thank you for all the work you do. Now, classes aren't all that we're about. We're about many other things, and one of the many other things is that we have a group of talented writers and artists among us. Some of us are trying to explore things that are far beyond what we ever did professionally, and we try to get creative in our old age, and it's fun. It's fun, and we want to give you a spot where you can kind of put that out there. So we have the HASP Review that the Communications Committee is in charge of producing. It is published every June, and we accept Ralph Fairbanks is the chair of the Communication Committee, and he's eager to receive your creative work, and that may be poems, articles, fiction, nonfiction, paintings, art pieces that could be photographed and put into the review. It's a fun way to share what you're trying, and we enjoy reading and seeing what you're about. So the deadline for these submissions is March 31st, and the committee would really like to have them coming in as soon as possible. That gives them time to put it together well and to see what they have to work with for the term. So please get your submissions in. And if you've never done it before, you have a story to tell, you have a creative way of telling that, and we'd like to hear more from many of you. And then finally, if you missed the HASP survey result presentation yesterday by Scott Travis, and if you want to see more of the data, there's a notebook now in the office, and in that notebook it includes the reports from the August appreciative inquiry small groups that we had. It has the data behind this survey summary and the report that Scott presented yesterday. So if you've missed what he presented and would like to dig more deeply into what you all said about who we are and where we want to go, there is that notebook there in the office for you to enjoy. We are not standing still as an organization. The HASP Board of Directors have 2 successive workshops planned, one this week and one next week, to work with what we've learned from you all to make specific plans and goals for the future. And we will keep you informed as we discover more and more, as we hope we've been doing all along. And now I'd like our membership chair, Doug Walver, to come forward to introduce our guests and new members who will be an important part of our future.
Boy, I love my job. It's just so great being membership chairman of a group like this, a wonderful organization, because this is another great day. We are very pleased to welcome 9 guests this morning, and I'd like to recognize you by having you just reading off your names. So attending with us this morning are Lynn Tangadal, Mark Lanning, Ginger McGinn, Dave McGinn, Jill Engel, John Engel, Joellen Hoogerwerf, Steve Hoogerwerf, and Cindy Minich. We are delighted that you're here. Hope you'll learn a lot about HASP in the near future, and we'd love to have you join us. We're also very happy to introduce and welcome 21 new members this morning. Isn't that great? And I'm going to ask you to stand, if you will, when I read your name so we can properly recognize and get to know you. There are some of our new members who may be attending online as well. So 21 new members, and actually we're having 6 reinstated members join or rejoin as well. So please stand when I read your name. Carol DeForest, Julie Dahlin, Larry Gensink, Mary Ellen Maiulo, Conrad Munchler, Lori Munchler, Birgit Meyerd, David Meyerd, Brenda Lee Palmatier, Rose Southard, Christy Turner, Stephen Turner, Douglas Vandermeulen, Rosemary Vroon, Gail Woods, Barb Alderink, Bob Sturken, Deb Sturken, Bruce Stewart, Kay Stewart, and Andy Bissonette. So please join me in giving a HASP welcome to these guests and the members. I'm sure you'll have friends, acquaintances who would enjoy and benefit from HASP membership. Please tell them about us and invite them as your guest to a monthly meeting. And one more thing briefly to remind you again, the new member orientation, which we're planning, will be on Monday, January 30th, 1 p.m. in the HASP classroom. It's for new members who have joined since our last orientation last May, and any other new members who may have missed their orientation. It's a chance to really get to know much more about HASP, what it has to offer for you, the opportunities you have to give to HASP, and to meet a lot of neat new members like yourselves. So thank you very much.
Good morning. Today we welcome back Travis Williams, who is the CEO of the Outdoor Discovery Center. Travis was a Hope College graduate, so was his wife, and his daughter now is a freshman at Hope. So he likes being back here, I'm sure. After graduating from Hope, he went on and got a master's degree and then taught briefly at Black River School. And at that time, he was contacted by members of the Ottawa Area School District and Wildlife Unlimited to maybe start an organization that will eventually be called Outdoor Discovery Center. I do remember visiting Travis in his office, which was just a mobile trailer that served as his office for all of 3 people, one of which is Brad Clow, which is one of our members here. He was an initiating group person, and it was also used as a classroom, one of many things. And in just talking with Travis, I think he's still seeking out a spot for an office. He's not real sure yet where that's going to end up. That initial meeting has now led 24 years later to an organization that has over 103 employees and serves over 100,000 people a year in the Holland community. How exactly did all of this happen? How did we go from zero to this wonderful, wonderful organization? Sheer energy, enthusiasm, the right people, organizational skills, and of course, lots of fun gave us what we have today. Other boards that many of you have served on know that we go to the board meetings, we hear a lot of ideas, the ideas get tabled, sometimes they get resurrected, and very often nothing ever gets done. But not at ODC, that never happened. Projects take shape immediately, plans are drawn up, approvals attained, concrete poured, and programs implemented. Stuff just got done out there and continues to get done. Today, Travis will share how ODC is continuing to plan and implement its advocacy for outdoor education and conservation. Let's welcome Travis Williams.
Thank you, Pat, for that introduction. And she's right, I am a former student here, and unfortunately when I was here, none of this kind of stuff existed. So if we wanted to give a presentation, we had to stand in the chapel because that was about the only place you could do it. So this institution is really important to me. It's a special place, and I appreciate the opportunity to be back today and talking. I have a lot to share, so I'm going to move quickly through it. But when people ask me to tell our story and what's going on at the ODC, it takes a little bit of time because we have a lot going on, and you'll see that as I talk. So we are now into our 23rd year of existence as an organization, and there's two things that we do. So as you listen to me talk today, there's two pillars to our work: conservation and education. And everything that I'm going to share with you, you will see fits in one of those two pillars. Although it looks like we have our hands on a lot of things, and we do, it's very strategic, and it's all meant to meet our end game of connecting people to the outdoors. If we want to educate kids about the outdoors, if we want families to engage in the outdoors, we have to protect the outdoors. We have to have an outdoors to visit and to experience. And if we want to have that outdoors there to experience, we kind of have to educate people about it so they'll protect it. So those two things go hand in hand, and that, in a summary, is what I'm going to talk about today. So Pat gave a brief history. I'm not going to dwell on this because I don't like to look in the rearview mirror that much, but our organization has evolved quite a bit. In 1983, it was a Ducks Unlimited chapter. Then it became this organization called Wildlife Unlimited. They partnered with the ISD. They created the Outdoor Discovery Center. And then in 2005, Wildlife Unlimited and the Ottawa Area ISD said, sorry, we can't fund you anymore, we're done. Wildlife Unlimited closed up shop. The ISD, not in a bad way, but withdrew their funding to us and had to go down a different path because of just different business reasons. And there I stood as a leader of an organization 5 years into it that basically lost all of its funding in one day. And then from there, we evolved, and we ended up in 2009 merging with what was called the Macatawa Greenway Partnership, another nonprofit. We assumed that organization into ours. And our growth has led us to the point of, in 2018, we legally changed our name to ODC Network. And the network describes who we are and what we do today, and I'm going to share that with you. So my humble roots and beginnings come from this building. This is the old Fillmore Township Hall, existed south of town here. It was moved onto this property, and when I went to work the first day, back in the year 2000, I drove into a parking lot, sat in front of this building, and said, what the heck do I do now? I was 24 years old, I had no phone, no pencil, no desk, no nothing. There wasn't even a phone line into the building. So where do you start? You're 24, you've never done this before. I think I got hired because I was young, dumb, and cheap. And that was the opportunity that the organization had. So that building, this is what it looked like. And today, this is what it looks like out there. And it has evolved, as Pat described. We do serve a lot of people. We have over 100 employees. We have a lot going on. That is why we have this network. When you look at this image, this is the best way we can describe what we do. You see things shaded in blue on the left side, those are our conservation efforts. The things shaded in green on the right side are our education efforts. And we actually have a variety of different business lines that we operate in within our organization, all with the goal of generating revenue to sustain our organization. We believe, especially since my little quick story I just shared in 2005 when I lost it all in one day, we don't put all of our eggs in any one basket. We like to create our own destiny and live that out, so we try not to rely on just donations to survive. As a nonprofit organization, donations are a big part of what you do, but if that's the only thing we have, we're not going to be around when things get rough and rocky, or at least it's going to get difficult. And so we've tried to figure out ways to generate revenue within our mission, and that's what's led to all these different business divisions, which help us fulfill our mission. And I want to walk you through those right now and give you a snapshot of what we've done and what we are doing in the community to really make it the place that we want it to be. Our goal is to make our community, in the collective word of our community, the best place to live, work, play, and learn. And we do not do this work alone. You're going to hear me say partnership a lot. Many of you have heard me talk, probably too much. That is huge for our organization, is the collective impact, how we work together with other folks. All of these different entities you see up there have some kind of a partnership connected to them that makes them successful. And I want you to hear that as we walk through it. So when you look at this graphic, this is kind of how we've grown over the years. And you can see Outdoor Discovery Center on the far left in 2000 when we started. And then there's this gap where nothing happened. I like to describe this to people. That's when I was trying to spend time getting all of you people in our community to actually listen to me, to actually make a donation to our organization. It took a long time. It's a grueling job to take an organization started from scratch that has nothing and then create something out of it. And so it took almost 10 years. But as we started rolling, you can see a lot of different things developed on the right side of that screen. That is because we have an amazing group of people, a diverse group of people that work for our organization. And when we were starting to add people beyond me, then things really started to happen, because that's really the special sauce in ODC. I know you can't read all of this, but just graphically you look at it, you see a lot of green blotches around that document up there, that map. Those are different land holdings or partnership holdings that we have with other groups. So the Macatawa Greenway, which is a lot of the stuff around the top, is actually owned by Ottawa County Parks, Holland Township, City Holland, Zeeland Township, and other partners that we have in our quest. And I'll talk about the Macatawa Greenway in a second. So we don't own all of that. Happily, we don't own all of that. We have partners that do and live into it. But we actually own 9 different properties, over 800 acres now of land in our community. Actually, it's getting close to 1,000. We just bought more a couple weeks ago. We are buying land when we can. And then we actually manage about 2,000 acres under contracts for different organizations or individuals. So we have a lot of land that we manage and take care of in our community. And when you look at where we do most of our work, this graphic on the left kind of shows that. You can see the lighter green shaded area. Last year, in 2022, they just got these numbers last week, we did over 68,000 kids and adults in our programs. That's people participating in actual programs facilitated by our staff. We then have well over, and it's hard to count because we're open dawn to dusk, free of charge for the community to come into our properties, but we've had counters on the roads and we've done the different ways to kind of assess. We have well over 50,000 people that just visit our facilities, not participating in programs every year. So our reach is pretty significant in the community. This graphic kind of shows you, and I don't know if you can see it real well, there's some red dots on the screen, if you can see those. They're kind of scattered all over. They show you places where we're doing our programming. That intensity diagram shows you where the intensity of those programs are being offered. So most of it is in this greater Holland, Zeeland area, kind of where we all call home here. But we do get outside of it. We do work in Grand Rapids, up in Muskegon, and occasionally even a little further out than that. So again, don't dwell on this. These numbers are a little old. We haven't processed 2022 completely yet, but our organization, the big takeaway is the little circle on the left. We get our revenue from 8 different sources, big bucket sources. Within that, there's other sources, but we try to diversify our revenue intake. And the graphic on the right up there shows you that about 85% of all the revenue that comes into our organization is spent on the programs that we operate themselves. And the real thing that we're very proud of, and this is one of our big goals as an organization before I start showing you a bunch of pictures of what we're doing, we generate about 70% of our organization's income through those business divisions up there. Those are non-philanthropic dollars. They're dollars that are generated not because someone was generous and wrote us a check, but because we're being paid to provide a service in the community in some way, shape, or form. And this is our sustainability mission for ourselves. How do we keep our organization healthy and thriving is really finding ways to generate revenue outside of our organization. In 2023, the budget that our board just passed has a little over $11 million. So we are a pretty good-sized organization when you compare to nonprofits in the community. So really, here's the message now. Why nature rich? My message was, developing this nature-rich community. Why do we do this? Well, let's just take a step back. In 2006, a lot of research started to come out because a gentleman named Richard Louv wrote a book called Last Child in the Woods. You may have heard of it. If you haven't, it's worth reading. But this book really spurred a lot of attention to the topic of people spending time outdoors and why it's important and the value of it, in particular focusing on children. So I'm not going to get into data and all kinds of numbers with you today because I don't have enough time. But I can geek out with you on it if you want to, so call me and we can do that. But what I did is throw 4 different examples up of different research reports that have come out illustrating facts that kids are not spending enough time outside, that the average child in America is pushing 7 to 8 hours a day in front of a screen, that we have the highest levels of vitamin D deficiency and myopia from staring at screens and all kinds of issues going on with our kids. We know that mental health is a huge issue in our communities, and we actually have tons of research that shows that being outdoors is one of the best ways to mitigate mental health issues. And so we as an organization view the connection between you, the people of our community, and the outdoors as a core staple to our mission. And so that's what we focus on as an entity. And there's been graphics created like this. Again, I don't expect you to be able to read them, but they outline all kinds of data that is out there about why we need to have people connected to the outdoors. And on the education front, the best way to grow a brain is to have it fully stimulated, full sensory stimulation. The best place to do that is outdoors, not in a building like this under fluorescent lighting. And that's why we really have this goal to connect people to the outdoors and really reimagine how education looks and feels. So as we dive into these different business divisions, first one I'm going to share with you is our Project Clarity effort. You may have heard about that. It's focused on restoring and protecting our watershed, cleaning up our watershed. I could talk the entire day just on this topic, so I'm going to move kind of quick through a lot of these, a lot of pictures just to share with you here. Our organization has spent, since 2013, we raised $12 million and began to invest it in our watershed. I'm guessing we've got somewhere in the ballpark of $30 million now that's been invested in our watershed over the last decade. And that investment has really started to make a difference. We've done things like get farmers to change how their farming practices go. Farming is critical to our community. It's one of the largest economic drivers in our community. At one point, it was the largest. It may still be. I don't know that to be a fact, but the agricultural community is huge in our area. And we found that a lot of the runoff, the sediment getting into our watershed and into Lake Macatawa was coming off of agricultural land. We now have 62,000 acres of farmland around our community that's in what we call best management practice, where it is being cover cropped, where the ditches are being protected, and that's because we were able to get the farmers to engage in this effort. The upper left picture there, that giant box people are standing in, that's a slag filter that we're filtering water lines through before the water exits property. We installed these in numerous farms around our community. We've partnered with different entities to do cleanup efforts, and we have built wetlands, several hundred acres of wetlands. We have lost 75%, 80% of our wetlands in our community were lost when it was settled. So before the Dutch settled in this community to start with, if you've heard me talk about this, we had wetlands everywhere. The city of Holland was a wetland. Where the Civic Center is right now was a wetland. It was filled in. That's how they created the space to build the town on, to have the waterfront. And when we do that, we take away those kidneys to the environment that filters it, and that starts to lead to our watershed being impaired. And then as we develop, we push more and more and more water down the water system, which it wasn't designed to do, creates more erosion and causes problems. We're trying to counter that. We've installed several rain gardens in the community. You see them in urban areas. We did this with partnership with the City of Holland, Collin Park, City Hall. One of our big projects, this is the big takeaway I want you to have, is this is what most of our river systems look like around our watershed. Very heavily impaired, eroded. This was just last year. This is a project we did, a few $100,000 project on kind of on the east side of town. We restored that riverbed, and now, today, it looks like this. And that's the work that we've been doing in our community for the last decade, and we have a lot more to do. We're not done yet, but our phosphorus level, that's in chemistry, the P represents phosphorus. The phosphorus level is a big issue in our community. That's a big issue in our watershed. That's what causes algal blooms. Well, the phosphorus is what we're really targeting. Right now, it's at about 64 parts per billion in Lake Macatawa, where we measure it. We hire Annis Water Resource Institute out of Grand Valley to do all of our evaluation work, and then Hope College also does some supplemental work to that. When we started, it was over 200 billion parts. So it has come down quite a bit. Again, I know you can't read these, but the thing to do is look at the very top line on the graph, and you can see the bars are the smallest. That's illustrating that since 1972, currently Lake Macatawa is at its lowest levels of phosphorus. And if we look at water clarity, that's what the Secchi disc measures. So here we want the bar to be as far to the right as possible, and we are just barely meeting what we call a goal, which still isn't great, but it is the cleanest Lake Macatawa has been since 1972 when we started measuring it as well. So we have a team of people that are working on this, and it's part of our real focus within the community. Now, going along with that and how we got into Project Clarity was our work in the Macatawa Greenway. So we have a lot of partners, as I mentioned earlier, Ottawa County Parks, Holland Township, City of Holland, Laketown Township, Park Township, Zeeland Township, City of Zeeland, all are part of this effort. And our goal is to actually preserve and protect that river corridor. And then you can see the green line drawn on there, which is our first phase bike path that's to run along the river corridor. Now, it doesn't run directly along it because we don't own all the land or have access to all the land to do that. But our collective group is working on that. We've kind of divided up the river corridor, 10 miles of river corridor, and have been tackling it in different sections. So ODC owns several hundred acres of the river corridor. Ottawa County Parks does as well. City of Holland does as well. And we're all collectively working on this effort to create a place that people can access the water, and this also preserves and protects that water ecosystem. Because of the two projects I just mentioned, in 2018, the state of Michigan came to us and said, will you help us create a same kind of plan for the lower Kalamazoo River? So from like Allegan to Saugatuck, doing the same thing. So we have done that, and we actually brought all these partners together in 2018 and drafted this 160-page master plan for restoring and protecting the watershed there. And what we have started to do, and you can see some darkly shaded parcels, we have started to work with partners in the community to acquire land along that river corridor in the same way for creating green space, creating spaces people can access, and time will tell exactly what all we get to put into play out of that. But we're excited about what we're doing in that respect as well. And then the last big thing on conservation front that I want to share is that we actually have a team of people on our staff that work solely in conservation services. So we provide services to our community like you see folks doing there, essentially creating green space and naturalizing it. So we have contracts with a variety of folks from Hayworth to Tierra Yachts to Tennant Corporation to Hookster Electric to BPW, where we're helping them naturalize the landscape around their buildings, their corporations, their facilities. Because if we can make their landscapes look like this, which these are projects our team has completed, we are creating pollinator space, We are creating land that does not need to be mowed. We are creating land that is designed to absorb more water and filter more water. It's drought-tolerant native plant species. This is what we want people doing with especially land that is just in excess, if we can call it that. So imagine when you drive around a community, when you go by some companies and you see they just mow acres and acres of land. How much money is spent on mowing that? How much emissions is let off by the equipment used to mowing that? Watering that, keeping it green, or you can do this kind of work with it. So we are really focused on that. And again, I know it's kind of hard to see this because it's a little dark, but there's red dots all over that screen. Those are all the places our Conservation Services team this last year was working and doing different projects. This is one of the ways that we sustain our organization and receive funding long term. And then the last of the conservation services pieces that I want to share is that we actually have a sustainability person on staff, Joe Sikma, who leads it for us. And we have contracts with the City of Holland, with Saugatuck Township, and several other groups to provide sustainability support, education, and consulting. Joe also oversees our sustainability efforts at ODC. We generate 40% of our own electricity through solar on our properties. We are committed to that. It's been a good thing for us. It's cut our electric bills in half. We have a lot of facilities. Just at the Outdoor Discovery Center alone, we have over 20 buildings. We own lots of houses. We buy land around. And so we really are committed to doing this kind of work. And when you look at our new facility, I think maybe if you've followed the news at all, you've heard about it, but we have a new preschool we just opened up, and I'll talk about that in a minute, on the north side of Holland and Park Township. When we built this facility, we did not hook a single gas line into it, other than, I'll be transparent and tell you, there is one that runs to the generator, the backup generator to the facility. So when you run a preschool, if the power goes out, you got a big problem because you can't flush toilets, you can't start doing things depending on situations, and so we have to, by licensing, have electricity. So we have a generator that'll run our whole facility. Hopefully it never kicks on, but we have a gas line that runs to that. But the entire facility is on geothermal heating and cooling. Solar is going to be added. We want to operate the building for about a year, and then we look at the average use and we design the solar to match that. That will be going in on this facility. All the stormwater is held on the property. This is an example of a very sustainable project that we put into play. This was the old airport. We planted well over 220 trees on the site, and then it's all been planted in that native plant species, as you saw me just share about it a minute ago. So we are committed to doing sustainable things in our community because that's the right way to do it. And in the long run, it saves us money as well. So one interesting thing I'll share, because I like to always leave people with new things that we're developing. So ODC Network has partnered with a variety of folks, including the Community Foundation of Holland Zealand area, and we're working to launch what is going to be a carbon offset program for our community. So quite often you'll hear people say they have net zero emissions. Google, Apple, some big companies will say that. That does not mean that they are not emitting. What they are doing is they go buy carbon offsets. They go buy land somewhere, often in another country, where they can get it cheap. They will buy property and preserve it because that offsets the emissions that they have here in the United States. It's a common practice. I'm not saying anything bad about it, but that's just what's often done. What's really beneficial is if you're offsetting in the community you're operating in. So ODC is working with this group, and we formed a collective. BPW and other folks are part of it. We are creating a program where a community member could actually purchase a carbon offset to offset your carbon footprint on a trip, something you can calculate. You'll be able to calculate on a web page how much your carbon you use to go on a plane ride, or how much you use in a year at your home, based on putting in some information. That'll generate a number, and then you, through these properties and projects we're going to put in, you can give funds to the Community Foundation, which then in turn will fund projects in our community to help offset carbon. And that's something that is a big effort right now. Now, we're not going to be able to bring it to scale for all the Gentexes and Herman Millers and Hayworths and huge companies. But what we can do is bring it to scale for people like you and me. Give us a place where we can buy into and invest into our sustainability as a community. So that's something that's coming soon. We'll hopefully be sharing that with the community by the spring. So those are our conservation efforts. So now I want to just talk for a second about our education efforts. So as I mentioned before, we have kind of those two pillars. So we try to preserve that environment, create those spaces so we can do the work that I'm about to share with you. And as I mentioned earlier, this last year we had a little over 68,000 people go through our programs. We see over 100,000 in total visiting and going through our facilities. For a small nonprofit, at least that's how we started, that's a big deal. Those are big numbers. We've only been around for 22 years, and to get to that level is pretty significant. Again, just showing you, this diagram shows you where the intensity of programming is done. So you can see that's blotch. It's kind of right over our Outdoor Discovery Center location, because that's where a lot of this happens. This shows you the intensity of program participation. So essentially what you're looking at there is where you see all that kind of hot yellow. That is where, that's illustrating kind of the area that we're seeing the number of people from. So the volume of people coming. So it's kind of the program capacity. And you can see that covers most of Ottawa County, a third of Allegan County, a third of Kent County, gets up into Muskegon. So we're doing a lot of programming all over the community, largely with schools and different organizations that we partner with. So when we look at education for ODC, it comes in a variety of ways. So the Outdoor Discovery Center has a visitor center, there's a Birds of Prey center, we have a preschool there, we have a lot of things that go on. That's where a lot of our visitation comes. We have the LD Nature Play Park and other features that draw lots of visitors from all over. So we're kind of a tourist hotspot now, and that keeps us very busy out there. The City of Holland, about 3 years ago, contracted with us to start managing DeGraaf Nature Center. Now, to be clear on this, we don't take care of the building, we don't take care of the trails necessarily, we run programs out of it. So we were given the opportunity to use it as an educational center or site, so the city could have it kind of, offload the responsibility of managing the day-to-day of it to someone else. So we now operate out of the DeGraaf Nature Center in a contract with the city. And we're doing the kind of things you see in the picture here. And I could, again, show you 1,000 pictures of different things that we do as an organization. We serve kids from, infant, basically, all the way to college students in our programs. We do a lot for adults as well. So we're doing a lot of different programs at the ODC. We actually have a full cultural history center that we have now built. This is something that we started right before the pandemic hit. Took us a while to get through it. We are finishing up our last piece of it right now, which is a building and restrooms that we're putting into this facility. But we have native dwellings that were created on site. We've got consultants from the native community that have helped us. We have a cabin. We covered the French fur trade, the early settlers, pioneer living, the economic exchange between the native communities and the early settlers, how they use the resources in the land. And we have this facility that we've created at ODC. We actually see almost 10,000 school kids alone just in this program every year. So now our preschools. A lot of people have heard about this probably. So we run 3 different preschools as of today. We started with Little Hawks Discovery Preschool, which operates out of the Outdoor Discovery Center site. That was our first preschool. Started in 2013. That year we signed up 56 kids to be in preschool. And the next year when we went to do registration, and it was full at 56, we went to do registration and we ended up with over 200 children on a waiting list. And so as an organization, we began a journey of having to deal with people being mad at you, not because of the quality of what you do, but because their kids can't get into your program. I get bribes. I have people calling me, offering me money if they can get their grandkids in the program. It really got weird. And so as an organization, we had to start to think about what are we going to do? How do we want to address this? So in 2020, flashing ahead, in 2018, we built a new preschool for us. And these 4 entities now exist. I'm going to jump ahead here. We built this new preschool. This is at ODC. This is our Little Hawks Discovery Preschool campus. It's a nature-based preschool. The kids spend most of their time outdoors. We built the building that's kind of on the right in 2018 to expand it. And we had 176 kids enrolled then after that year, and we had 300 kids on a waiting list. So we thought we were going to solve our problem by expanding, tripling the size of the program, and all we did is double the size of the people mad at us. So we then had to start thinking about how are we going to address this further. So we have this wonderful center there. These kids spend most of their day outside. It's very heavily focused on play-based learning, social emotional development, because we know in education that a 3, a 4, a 5-year-old should not be drill and kill, learn to write your name, memorize your letters, memorize your numbers. You can tell I'm getting on my soapbox. That's not what preschoolers are supposed to do. Preschoolers are supposed to learn to interact with one another, to leave mom and dad and spend some time separated from their parents. They're supposed to learn to get along with other kids and all those social emotional development things, as well as we want to be building up their core body strength, because eventually they do have to sit like you are right now listening to me blabber. We do eventually make people do that. Core body strength is important to that. And when kids don't play and they're not active, it's harder to sit still in a seat. So we want to, at a young age, focus on the things that they need to be focused on. Our education system has broken that, and we're trying to push back the other direction on it. And you'll see that with what I'm going to share here. So this is what we're doing with kids. Now, they still learn their letters. They still learn their numbers. We still do literacy. We do all of it. But we focus on the social emotional development of the child, because that's what's most important, and all the brain-based science says that. So I don't know why we don't do that across the state. I don't understand that, but that's what we are doing. And I believe that's why we have 200 people on a waiting list when we put our program out there. So this is our program. And then what we actually did after that was we started something that not many have done, is that ODC has a lot of young people. When you run preschools, you get a lot of 24 and 5-year-old employees. Then they started having babies. And we realized that we were going to lose really talented people, and talent is everything to us, unless we did something about it. So we started our own child care program for our staff. And we call it Hatchlings, and it operates out of a house, essentially, that was formerly on the site. We renovated it into these classrooms, and we run our own nature-based child care for our employees now. And so that's something that we really got invested into, and it's going to grow, and you'll hear some other reasons why we're getting into this more and more now. But this was really important to us. The national statistic of mothers that don't go back to work once they have kids is pretty deplorable. The numbers are very, very low. Moms generally can't get back into work. The cost of childcare is very high. The availability of childcare is extremely low. There's one spot for every 2 children in Ottawa County alone. The average cost of childcare in our county is about $68 a day. So it's very difficult for people to afford that and to find places for their kids to go. So we decided we would disrupt that and put it into play in our own organization. We're right about 90% of our employees that have had babies, the mothers have come back to work, which is extremely high compared to the rest of the sector. And I can tell you there's a couple things that skewed our numbers. We've had 2 employees have twins, and they decided not to go back to work after that. So, which I can understand. So because of all that, in 2020, during the pandemic, Hope College and the Ottawa Area ISD approached us and said, hey, we want you to take over this preschool that we tried to start. And it was running out of the basement of the Anderson Workman Building. And we said, what are you running a preschool out of the basement of the Anderson Workman Building for? And they're like, well, good question. We want you to run it. And I said, no. And then they called me back a month later and said, will you please do this? And they were having trouble keeping staff. They were having all kinds of issues. Finally, I gave in. I say I because I was the only one working because everything was kind of closed and I was in my office by myself. And finally we said yes. We took the program over. We moved it to Pillar Church, who partnered with us. By the end of that year, we had 18 kids enrolled in the program. It's a GSRP program, so it's capped at 18. They never had more than 5 or 6 before that. We had 18 kids in the program. We turned it into what we called an urban nature-based program. We wanted to show people that you didn't have to be at ODC to do this. You could do it anywhere. So we were going to do it downtown. So we now, just a couple weeks ago, moved into the Stowe building, which is on 6th and Central downtown. The whole first floor of that building, the plan is ODC will be operating early childhood programs out of it in downtown Holland. And so if you go in that building, it's really lovely. And now we have a preschool inside it that's operating right downtown. And it's largely serving downtown kids. It's a little bit more of an urban environment, and therefore it draws families from the downtown area. And they use downtown as their classroom. Our number one place we like to go is Window on the Waterfront, which is right across the street from our new location, which is great. But these kids are experiencing their community that they live in. And that's what's important. We're connecting these kids to their community by doing this. And we can still do nature-based downtown. It doesn't need to be in the woods at ODC. And so that got going. We still had a waiting list. We still have this reputation that there's never any open spots in our preschool. So we were given the blessing of getting some resources. The Mulder family in the community made a significant investment. The Park Township closed down their airport. The Chamber of Commerce took some of the land back in ownership that they had previously given them. And so we ended up buying 11 acres from the Chamber. We took those resources, ran a campaign, and we built this facility that now operates out there. And so at ODC today, we have 155 kids roughly in preschool. Downtown, we have 18, and we're going to grow that into 2 to 3 classes of kids, so it'll be 30, 40, 50 kids. And out here, we have another about 160 kids now in preschool. Our child care center operates with about 20 to 30 kids in it. Each year it changes as kids graduate out and move on. So we have 3 preschools now and our child care center operating in our community. And then this year, we started to get requests from corporations because getting employees has become a difficult thing. And we've had some of our corporate leaders in town have kids go through our preschools, and we started to get approached about, would you be willing to help us create childcare or some kind of preschool program within our corporation? And so we also have this goal of geographically expanding. So we have a school in the West Ottawa district, we have a school in the Holland district, we have a school in the Hamilton district. So we want to get over to Zeeland, maybe get up to Grand Haven, maybe over to Hudsonville eventually, and start planting our impact in these school districts to start illustrating to them what's the best way to do this. This is our own selfish and maybe a little arrogant intention that we have. So Gentex Corporation, you may have heard about this, came to us this last year and started a conversation. And we have now an agreement with them. We will be opening this school next year at Gentex. You can see the images here of what it looks like. And this facility will serve the kids, the employees of Gentex Corporation in Zeeland, which Gentex has 5,400 employees locally. And so this will still be serving our community because our community works at Gentex. And we will have the opportunity to be there. Quite a big campus. It'll have 240 kids enrolled on site. If you're familiar with Zeeland at all, where you see the 2 words Gentex up there, in between them is Riley Street, and where you see that yellow box is where we'll be building. That's off 88th Avenue, just south of Quincy. We'll be putting in what will be our 4th preschool over in Zeeland, fully funded by our partners in Gentex. So we're excited to be doing this and offering it out. And Gentex is committed to subsidizing the cost of the child care so that their employees can get it very cheap. And this is the impact we want to have, and they want us to do it in our style, doing the nature-based style. So that's what's really exciting for us. So today we have about 400 kids in early childhood programs that we offer. 122 of them receive what's called a GSRP scholarship. That's Great Start Readiness Program. State of Michigan provides free tuition to students that come from low-income families or have various risk factors that would make them otherwise have difficulties advancing in their educational opportunities. And so we are proud that we don't just offer this program to wealthy people who can afford to pay for it. Between the GSRP scholarships that we get some Ready for School 3-year-old scholarships, and then we have our own scholarship fund that we use to subsidize tuition. About half the people enrolled in our preschool programs are getting some form of subsidy to help them afford it. So it's not just an elitist thing. Because of that, this is our last big education effort that I have to share. Because of that, we ended up developing another business division for ourselves, which is called the ODC ODC Education Network. And this is focused on really how do we get all age levels doing what we're doing at the preschool level? And schools, because of our impact, started to ask us, how do we do this at kindergarten? How do we do this at first grade? How do we do it at second grade? You may have heard of Forest School at Holland Christian, wonderful partners of ours. We help them build that whole program from the ground up. We have staff 3 to 4 days a week at Holland Christian helping facilitate their program, coaching their teachers, mentoring their teachers, meeting with the administrators, helping advocate for what they need to be doing to have that program be as successful as it is. We are doing that in 30 different school districts today, right now in our area. And so this is what it looks like. We're getting kids out of the classroom, doing their reading, doing their math. You can do all kinds of stuff outside. And in fact, I use this as an example. We run a series of summer school programs now for area schools, all focused on how do you use the outdoors or just get out of the classroom to do the education work. So you see the girl holding the fish. You think, well, fishing, that's great. How is that really academic? These kids go fishing. They learn how to fish, which in itself has some educational aspects. They catch a fish, they weigh the fish, they measure the fish, they put that information on a spreadsheet. That gets put into a database. They then go back, if they go into the classroom, sometimes they can do it outside, depending on the age group. What's the average weight of the fish? What's the average length of the fish? What's the population density of bluegills to bass in the pond? Et cetera, et cetera. You can do math, and then you can write about your experience. You can journal about it. You can bring literacy in. You can actually read about that stuff. That's what our group is doing. This isn't rocket science, but it's just opening the doors up and stepping outside. And so we have kids doing that. And then we got into actually, how do we make the environment at these schools better? So we started building playgrounds, and some of you may have seen some of the work that our team is doing, but we have a team that actually is now doing playground development and classroom, schoolyard development. So we have a whole project. You can see this kind of part of a brochure we have. This is the window on the waterfront playground that's just down the street here, but our team built this. So we have a whole crew that goes out and does nature-based outdoor play and learn spaces. Minimize the amount of plastic material, more grass, more dirt, more things to climb on, more interaction with the natural environment. And so we have started doing that as well, all under this umbrella of the ODC Education Network and helping schools get their classrooms outside. This last year, we did 5 playscapes. We've done 17 playgrounds now in our community total. We have 2 years worth of them under contract to try to finish. And that just had an email this morning before I came here with somebody asking for one. 30 schools, as I mentioned, are contracted with us to provide this consulting service at all different age levels. We have 6 outdoor-based summer school programs that are operating from West Ottawa to Grand Haven to Zeeland to Holland. Getting kids connected in their summer school programming. Because if you really want a kid to get better, don't take them to school in July and set them inside under fluorescent lights and expect them to get better at reading and math. It's kind of ridiculous, right? But if you turn it into kind of a summer camp experience and integrate that stuff in, they don't even realize they're at summer school. And that's what's happening. And I can back this up with some data for you as I conclude things here. So again, just don't try to read all of it. What I want you to focus on is in that box, the far two right numbers. The top number is this was done by Hope College, researched over a course of a year. There was a nature-rich classroom, as we labeled it, where the kids went outside all the time. And then there was a classroom of traditional students. Mix of kids, wasn't all the elite flyers in one or the other. It was evenly mixed, actually handpicked by the principals. And in fact, they tended to put more of the kids that needed more outdoor time and had behavior issues into the nature-rich class. 59% of those kids had grade level improvement versus 37 in the traditional class. And when we look at an ELL program, so that's English Language Learners Program, these are kids that have Spanish or speak some other language as their first language, we actually see 93% of the students in one of our programs advance their reading scores after just a 4-week program. 100% of the students that came every day had advancements in their reading and writing. And we hear stuff. I just heard on the news last night that Michigan is ranked so low and our scores keep dropping. Yet we're getting scores to go up. What's the difference? How we're teaching probably versus the way other schools are. Last one I'll share is this is a K-4 summer reading program. And this was 60% were minorities, 83% free and reduced lunch in this program. And we actually, after 5 weeks, had 89% of the participants. And these are kids that are put in the program because they weren't at level, by the way. They were showing that they were at level, and 78% showed an increase in their attitudes, too, about school. So this is what we're trying to do, and we all put this all into this category of if we do school like this, again, that we can get results. And we are labeling this under this idea of reimagining education, and there's a whole group, Grand Valley, Hope, several of our staff, some schools are now working on this with us. And what we're trying to do is change where and when learning happens, transform it into meaningful learning, meaning hands-on, stuff that kids can engage in, and make sure that we're growing how they learn. And our desired outcomes of this are mastery of the content, literacy, and mathematics. So we're hitting those benchmark things that everybody wants, growing habits of success. And we're focusing on some things that a lot of education isn't focusing on anymore, which is the real-world experience, developing those 21st century skills, and equipping families. So all of our preschools have a social worker on staff. We run parent education classes. Parents can come in and get help. We are engaging just as much in the family and investing in the family as we do in the child, because that's who's with the kid more than the school. So we have to help them become better at what they're doing, and we need all of our schools doing that. And then maintaining habits and practices that lead to health and wellness, because that's really important. So, and we're doing this at all levels, but we start with our students and we work all the way to our building level and district level and school boards. We are getting them all engaged in this process. And then the last thing I'm going to share with you here is just something that I love to share with folks like you, because we also, the last part of our business is we do some ecotourism. And so one of the things that we started doing several years ago was trying to get adults to engage with us more in what we're doing. And so we started taking trips. And so we go all over the world doing things. Hope College has a program here, their global travel program. We've actually facilitated and offered trips for Hope through the global travel program. We do a lot of the similar things. But we've gone to Africa, we've done stuff in the Arctic looking at polar bears, we have done stuff in the Galapagos and the rainforest in Ecuador, going there in March actually with a group. We've done these different fishing excursions, and we do a lot of trips to Alaska as well and other places. These are just a sampling of things that we do. But that has really been brought into play to engage folks like you, to engage our stakeholders and people that are looking for, help having their own outdoor and nature-based experiences. Not always will a 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old person want to come fishing at ODC, but they might want to do something like what you see on the screen here. So, and I'll just conclude with that, as I share all this, we make this happen with 105 employees at ODC. We hire about 15 more seasonal people every summer to cover a lot of the stuff we do. We have about $20 million in assets, and we have about 40 partnerships, as I keep mentioning, that help us do everything that we do as an organization. And about 1,000 people annually invest in our work still. That helps us get to where we're at. This is our team. It's actually not everybody, because they never can get them all to show up at the same time for something, but this is what our team looks like. And I'm just real proud of the work that we're doing in the community, and we wouldn't be able to do it if we didn't have friends like you that supported our work and a community that supported our work and invested in this. So we believe in making our schools better. We believe in making our community connected to the outdoors, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to share this with you, and hopefully you are getting outside and engaging with it as well. So thank you.
We're going to have time for some questions from Travis, and so if you have questions, Gary's over there and I'm on this side, so please raise your hand and we'll come to you.
What type of volunteer activities do you have for people like us, and how do we find them?
Good question. So we have lots of different ways that people volunteer. So we have folks that will help out in our schools doing volunteer work, getting program materials together for kids. If you work in one of our preschools, we have to background check you. We're willing to do it. It's not a big deal, but it's just something we have to do because safety and security purposes. But so there's stuff in our schools you can do. You can reach out directly to any of our preschools if you wanted to volunteer at our preschools. There's a site director at each one of them and an office manager that would help you. At ODC or DeGraaf, we have people that help sit at our visitor desks. We have people that help care for wildlife. We have lots of live animals at ODC in particular. We have people that help with that. We have people that do trail maintenance. We have people that work that help build stuff for us. So a wide variety. And really the thing to do is just to reach out to the organization. Depending on what you're interested in, we have different people that we would engage you with that would talk with you. So the easiest thing to do is just to call our office or stop by our office and ask, and we would try to align you. We believe in making sure we're aligning with what you want. We're not going to just say like, well, get into this box and sit in that. We'll make sure it's something that fits your skill set.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for all that ODC is doing. It makes Holland such a great place to live. But I want to plant a seed. Rest Haven is building the farmstead. Many of the people here are probably going to be residents there, and I would love to encourage ODC to partner with them and put a preschool on their property so that some of us who want to volunteer with little ones, it would be very easy and the generations could mix.
Thank you. That's not the first time I've heard that. So, and it's not out of the question to have that happen. Those conversations are kind of spurring along in the background, so we'll see. We've even talked about that potentially with an Evergreen or with the Freedom Village too. So we'll see where things go.
I'm just going to share an experience I had with ODC that reflects back on the first part of this lecture where he talked about agriculture. I took a field trip as an elder, and we went to 3 farms and we learned what Project Clarity is all about. And I'd like you to encourage that again, please.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions? Travis, maybe you can help with helping us understand where your teacher staff comes from and the people that are teaching in your preschools.
Yeah, so we have a standard that we hold that's a little higher than most preschools. So every one of our preschool classrooms has a certified teacher. So 4-year degreed certified teacher. Most of them have a master's degree as well because GSRP requires a higher level for the state to fund it. So we have teachers that are graduating out of Grand Valley, Hope, schools like that. And then we have 3 teachers in every classroom. So then there's a second assistant and a third assistant. The second assistant has to have at least a CDA or higher. We require all 3 of them to have at least a CDA. So we will pay for people to get that if they don't have it. CDA is a Child Development Associate's degree, so it's a certificate actually. And so we have teachers that come from the area. We've had people move here for jobs. Thankfully, we've made a decision as an organization, and again, I'm not going to say this just to toot my horn, but it's another soapbox that I get on. But preschool teachers generally have been paid in the range of $14 an hour to take care of kids and be their first educator. ODC has taken a stance to pay $20 to $22 an hour for those same positions. And because of that, we're able to draw a lot of folks that want to be in the sector but want to actually make a living wage. And so we're attracting people from all over. So we have people that have come to us from Wisconsin and a lot of different places. We have, I think, about 60 early childhood educators in total on our staff. It makes up the vast majority of our staff. But we're trying to push the edge of that so that we can draw talent because a lot of other places are struggling to get it right now, especially in early childhood.
Thank you. Anything else? Does anybody else have any other questions? Well, I want to personally thank Travis. Do we have one?
Yes, hand up
Oh,
there.
I'm sorry, Bob. I didn't see you there.
Thank you for the great presentation. I think your programs, if I remember the history correctly, may be a little too early in their operation for this, but I'm wondering if you have any future plans to track your preschool students longitudinally to see if what you're doing with them keeps them connected to nature and valuing nature over the course of their lifetime.
That's a fantastic question. So it gets difficult because in preschool, we actually have kids, like we use Little Hawks at ODC as an example. We have children that come to school there, their parents drive them from as far away as Wyoming, Muskegon Heights, and South Haven to come to that school. Now, we've added other schools, which has helped a little bit with that, but we draw from a big area. The problem is those kids then go back to those places to go to school. So our ability to have like a partner school that can desegregate the names on the data and share information with us on achievement and that, it gets really challenging. We do pay to have Hope College. Dr. Stephen Scogan from Hope here does a lot of research work with us around our science and education efforts. And we have tracked that to a degree. We do survey parents. We get anecdotal information back from schools as well on that. But because of the nature of the preschool and how kids can come from any school district and then leave, it gets really hard to track that long term. So it's just we would love to. I mean, if we could, we'd be doing it for sure, but it's just difficult. And then you get all the like privacy stuff and everything, and it's hard to get the information. So now we are working with Holland Heights. We're working with Jenison Public. We're working with a school in West Ottawa developing. We've worked with Fenville. We work with In Academy and Hamilton. All those school districts, we are running specific programs. And actually in Holland Public, Holland Heights is doing a whole nature-based school. And we're starting with kindergarten and working up. And then we actually have Forest School too that I've already mentioned. So those schools can monitor that and we can get feedback that way. And we are from Forest School, so.
One of your slides showed that you started out from Ducks Unlimited and then to Wildlife Unlimited. Do you still maintain any association with like Sportsmen for Youth or any other outdoor sporting clubs like that?
Yeah, good question. So not real formal connections anymore. So we have different aspects of those groups will support us still. They'll invest in things that we're doing. They've given us money. You know, they sponsor different programs that we do. But a lot of those have, like, the breadth of their programming has diminished. And then, to be honest, what we're doing, we're over our eyeballs and stuff to do. So it's hard to take on more and more work when just dealing with the schools and things that we have going on. So we do some program for us. They'll bring us in sometimes to do stuff for their kid programs. We get contracted out a lot, but we don't have any formal relationship with any of those groups. So Wildlife Unlimited, just quick side note, they were a Ducks Unlimited chapter, and it was a group of what I would say, businessmen from the Holland area. And they didn't like being part of Ducks Unlimited because Ducks Unlimited is a national organization and a bunch of the money had to be sent to the national office when they raised it every year. And Holland had the largest grossing chapter of Ducks Unlimited in the United States, right here. And in 1980s, they were generating over $100,000 in one night at a fundraiser. And so they would have to give a lot of that money away, and they didn't like it, so they created their own organization to keep it here. And that's where our roots came from. So,
Travis, I want to thank you today and sort of build on what Pat said. You get an idea at the ODC, and before we know it, it becomes a reality. And so for you who mentioned maybe Rest Haven, Freedom Village, we won't know, but in a couple of years or sooner, we might see another preschool there and using people of our age to sort of be the assistants, maybe not the teachers, but bringing our knowledge and assisting with what they do. Thank you. You are a marvelous speaker, and we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
I told Travis, I think I'm one of his groupies, if that's what you can be, because I love to follow what he's doing. You always know what the next best and greatest thing is going to be. So pay attention to the ODC. There's a lot going on there. Next month, we are going to hear from John Van Allsburg. John is the chief judge at the Ottawa County Family Court. And as you may know or may not know, Family Court has built a new building out at the Fillmore Complex. And Judge Van Allsburg is going to be speaking to us about Family Court, what is happening there, how it grew, and what is going on in our area with it. So I look forward to seeing you here next month, February 7th, for Family Court, and thank you very much for coming today.